Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the platform. Let's talk about it. It's your host, Jas Lynn here. So excited to be here today with this very special guest. We'll get into it. But to briefly introduce this amazing woman, her name is Tansy McNulty, correct? McNulty, yep. And she's the founder of 1 Million Madly Motivated Moms. And it is an organization that is focused on public safety and mental health organizations and has a commitment to ending and preventing police violence in the United States by 2038, which is an amazing goal to set. This was inspired by, this country's long history of police brutality and violence, such as Philando Castile, Ronnie Schumper, Alton Sterling. I mean, the list goes on. And Tansy left her corporate career to start this organization and create resources that focus on prevention strategies and mental health advocacy within the Black community. Definitely focusing her energy or the organization's energy towards empowering Black women as well to be the leaders in these spaces. So, thank you so much for being here. That's a short snapshot, but yes, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this, Jasmine. Anytime we can share the work that we do and kind of call people in to help us, we get a lot of thank yous in the community and thank yous online. But we really want people to be tapped to be their own advocates, using their voices, their experiences in their communities to get our resources and our knowledge and information to their neighborhood. We want to get all this information, all these resources directly to their backyards. And we need them, you all who are listening, to do that for us. We don't claim to be a voice for you. You have your own voice. We want to empower you and equip you to use your voice and you to step up and you to speak up to protect those you are connected to. So thank
Yes, and yes, thank you for being here. Immediately I knew once I read the bio and, got informed about the organization, I was like, oh yeah, this is a perfect organization to couple with and talk, spread awareness about. Especially the part you mentioned about empowering yourself and, taking the control back into your own hands of educating yourself, which is really why I started this podcast in the first place, was to spread
you.
awareness and to educate people and let them know that things aren't just happening to you. There's agency that we have, and we just have to find those resources to help us navigate how to, utilize that agency for our community's benefit and our individual benefit. Um, so, in that, speaking of agency, I mentioned you went from corporate to starting this organization. So, could you give the listeners maybe some background on your story on how you made that transition, what sparked that transition for you, and what motivated you to start this organization?
All right, I think it's kind of kismet that you use the term motivated in your entry. Yeah, so I spent over a decade in corporate America working for large corporations, essentially helping them save money in supply chain operations, specifically in logistics and transportation. So my day-to-day work was I was, committed to and tasked with reducing costs in transportation, logistics, warehousing for large corporations. When I got pregnant with my oldest son in 2016, my husband and I went on baby moon, kind of disconnected from the world, and we came back to the deaths of Ronnie Shumpert, Philando Castile, and Alton Sterling. And they all happened between June, July of 2016, and I was carrying a Black boy child,
Mm-hmm.
and it was it was an awakening moment to be like, oh, and to get back to work and it would just be silent. Like people,
Yeah.
my community online was talking about it, but at work, people weren't talking about it. These people who I talk with about everything. We talk about the food we eat, the teas we
Okay.
literally anything you can think about. But no one seemed to feel what I felt as deeply as I felt it when I was at work. And at that point, I was like, what am I doing? Like, I'm spending a lot of time working on, essentially lining stakeholders and stockholders,
Mm-hmm.
keeping them well paid. But what am I doing for myself, for my community, and for my unborn? At that time, I only had one child. Now I have two. for my unborn children. So at that point, I was like, nah, let me do things that I know how to do and know how to do well to create an organization that hopefully I won't even need by the time they're 16, 17, 20, 25. What can I do now to prepare for them to be outside of my care, outside of my home in their teens, in their early 20s and 30s? So that's where the organization came from. So I didn't start the organization. So I got that awakening moment for me happened in 2016, but I didn't start the organization until 2018. And at that point I had another whole other child before I actually was completely through with corporate and had launched the organization. And then that first year, I did nothing but just research, read, study, and try to figure out, okay, why do I feel called to do this? Like, why does this issue bother me so much? And I encourage people to listen to yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer too. So listen to your higher power or whatever your higher power is to to fix what hurts you most.
Yeah.
So if something stays on your mind often and it bothers you and you think, man, somebody got to do something about this, you have to remember that you're somebody. And it doesn't matter if you have one follower or 1 million, you have the power to do something about it. And you, honestly, if you feel irritated about something long enough, more than likely that's what you were called to fix anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I know right now we're all kind of, it's like so much happening, like so many distractions, so much is happening. But you've got to focus in on the thing that you were assigned to fix. And it can be very difficult. You can support. I got girlfriends, and you name a cause, I got a girlfriend who either leads it or is a leader in it, right? You
Yeah.
can absolutely support other people in it, but whatever your thing is that really bothers you, and for me, that is police violence because it's been going on for so long, and there are so many lives that have been lost. Outside of just the lives that have been lost, it's the communities that have been impacted by that loss. And then there are those who actually survive encounters that their lives have been altered by. You
Mm-hmm.
lost a job, you lost incredible income, you can't move your neck anymore because you were beaten. Like there are so many things that are tied to that violence. And the reason we use the term police violence instead of saying just police brutality is a part of that
Mm-hmm.
violence.
Mm-hmm.
Conduct is a part of that violence.
Mm-hmm.
Rape, stalking is a part of that violence. Falsifying reports is a part of that violence. So we look at it holistically. How are you abusing your power? What form of violence are you using? And our goal is to end all abuses and issues of violence and police violence by the year 2038. And it's an odd year. Like, why don't you pick 35 or 40 or 45 or something more even? But no, it's very intentional that I intend to spend 20 years in this work. I
Mm-hmm.
launched the organization on June 13th, 2018, and I
Mm-hmm.
intend to have resolved the problem and create a safer nation by June 13th of 2038. So
Yeah.
I'm giving us one generation's time to solve this issue. And even if I don't end it, I will have moved the needle so far, moved the baton so far. So when Jasmine and the next generation come along, it's just an
Mm-hmm.
easier work for them, a lighter lift because the needle's been moved so.
Yes, and as a legal scholar myself, I mean the idea of precedent is just all within the legal field of like, oh well, what did they do before? What did they do? What did they do? You know, that's a big thing, big principle. And building off of the things that were already done is a huge legal principle, and I identify with that idea of sometimes you can feel like, oh, well, this seems too big for just little old me to handle, but the reality is like sometimes the stuff is incremental, but there it's still necessary. Like it's still necessary. Like you can't move forward without moving forward, whatever that moving forward looks like. So that's amazing. I hope to do everything in my power to help accomplish that goal, like you mentioned, and to further that goal if needed.
And
Beyond.
you already are. You already are. You said let's talk about this. Let's talk about it publicly. Let's share it with people. That is a step. One of my life coaches. Listen, I'll talk about that in a minute. One of my coaches, she shared with me years ago. It probably was 2019, 2020. She said, "Forward is a pace. It as long as you're moving forward, whether that's a step, a crawl, a leap, a run, you are going at a pace." And so when you talk about the precedent of building off of other people, that step matters because you never know who's assigned to help you get to the next step. And then who's next to the next step. Like all of it matters.
Mm-hmm.
All of it matters so much.
100%, 100%. And to build off of, setting the context of like what your goal is and what, you're here to accomplish with this organization, what would you as the leader say are some of the key prevention strategies that you guys utilize to advocate for the reduction of police violence by 2030?
Yeah, so we address the past, the present, and the future. And we are talking about prevention. So we used to, you'll notice on our website, or if you look at some of our content, we don't talk about fight as much as other organizations, mainly because I believe that fighting all the time is wearing us out, is wearing us down, particularly Black women. And so we decided to move upstream, where our goal is to prevent the interaction from happening in the first place. And so we do that few different ways. I'll talk about our main ways are to reduce police interactions as much as possible. That's first. Try not to interact with them as much as possible. It is very hard today because policing has been interwoven into literally every space that we're in, where it's been normalized, where police, they should be there. They should be there. Well, for Black bodies and marginalized groups, that can be very, very dangerous. So our first goal is to prevent the interaction in the first place. And our largest program or offering for doing that is the Right Response Directory. The Right Response is the first of its kind free national database directory for alternatives to police response for mental health, behavioral health, and substance use disorder emergencies. That means that if you, your loved one, or someone you witness is having a mental health emergency, that instead of just thinking, let me call 911, because 911 likely will call law enforcement, for you to stop for a second, think, is this a crime or does someone need help? Like, oh no, I'm witnessing someone having an episode. They've been triggered in some way. They need someone to help to de-escalate. Let me go to therightresponse.co. That is our website, therightresponse.co. You can also get to it from, of course, 1in4.org, or just the right response directory. We bought almost all of the handles in the domains. So you type in the right response, you'll get to us. But it's important for you to go to that site, find your state, find a local response team that's close to you. We're instructing people to get used to communicating with them before they need it. So not just in an emergency situation. If you know you have a son or a daughter or a loved one who has bipolar 1, or they have some type of a mental health condition, go to the right response right now where there's nothing going on. Find your local response team, read up on them, look at their website. All the information is right there. Call their administrative line. We have administrative line and emergency line on most of the units that have them, and talk to them. Say, hey, what happens when I call you? And they'll say, well, we're going to ask you about your emergency. You ask who's there, ask what you think you need, what's going on, and just become familiar with them now while it's not an emergency. So if and when there is one, you feel more comfortable
Yeah.
talking to them. It just makes a difference when you're familiar with a group or an organization or an entity versus when you're just calling them out of the blue when there's an emergency situation. It's kind of hard for you to think because your adrenaline is rushing and all of that.
Correct.
But the goal for us is to make sure that we decriminalize mental illness,
Mm-hmm.
make sure people understand that having a mental illness is not a crime. It is a health condition, just similar to your high blood pressure, your heart murmurs, your broken leg, whatever part of your body. Your brain is inside your body. It's not somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
This is all health.
Mm-hmm.
Health is all. One of our partners are inseparable. You can't separate your mind from the rest of you, right? It's all one part. So we're taking care of the mind and making sure that those who are having mental health emergencies can get a mental health response and not a criminalized response. Because even if an officer is trying to do the right things, showing up in a uniform with a gun to a person who is having an emergency, especially if they're Black, queer, otherized in some way, it can escalate the situation.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that people who have a mental health emergency get a mental health response.
Yeah, and it ties into an even larger historical context that we know that the police force in general was created to criminalize black bodies. Like that was really the emergence of the modern day policing system was in
Like,
response to slaves being freed and they were like, well, now we got to do something to, get that 13th Amendment loophole. As we all are familiar with. Well, maybe not all of us, but I know we're familiar with. We're familiar with. So it's amazing that you focus in on the mental health aspect of it as well as the community response to that. Um,
yes.
so, from your perspective, how can you highlight how this organization specifically highlights what Black mothers or just Black women can do in leading the prevention focused strategies that you guys have implemented?
I'm glad you used the term community response because that is what it's called. It's called a community response program,
Mm-hmm.
or call it alternative response. But it's clinicians, medics, sometimes firefighters, peers, different groups of people responding to the needs of the community.
Yeah.
And this is important for Black women because we're often the ones tasked with justice work,
Mm-hmm.
raising money for legal fees when harm does happen,
Mm-hmm.
burying our loved ones when harm does happen,
Mm-hmm.
advocating for them, pushing like, can you hold this person accountable for harming my loved one? It
Mm-hmm.
is usually Black women.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the most vested interest in ending the issue because it will ultimately bless our health. We can live longer because we're not having to advocate, yell, scream, fight, raise money, do all these things because we saw the issue. And
Yeah.
it's important for us to yield our voices and our experiences to this issue because we're kind of the only ones who can get we're the only ones who give our perspective because we're the only ones who knows what it feels like to be the one called in the middle of the night. Will this happen? Can you raise $6,000 to
Mm-hmm.
get me a lawyer?
Mm-hmm.
It's usually us.
Mm-hmm.
When something happens and they're doing a press release, you usually see us.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones saying, well, this is how my son or my daughter, my loved one behaved. This didn't happen this way, or this is what the officer did. We're the ones trying to gather evidence. So we have to lead the charge in sharing our experiences and promoting and providing solutions that will solve these issues.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. 100%. And it's funny you mention, well, it's not funny, but you mention how the media, you see, like you said, you often see like the mother of someone who's harmed or the sister of someone who's harmed, and like how we are often just the face of these issues, and how detrimental it can be when there is a lack of knowledge and a lack of resource available to support these communities, because sometimes ultimately the tragedy does galvanize people, but without the resources to sustain those efforts, oftentimes they can fizzle out, for lack of a better way of putting it. So it's amazing that you're creating resources for that, like you said, and that's why I'm hoping people receive this episode and they do the research, they do the work to inform themselves, even if it's not as particularly affecting you presently. If you know someone, or just spreading the awareness, because that's really what this is all about. Because it does, and especially in today's climate, it's gonna be very important for people to really focus on the impact that they can have in their individual communities. For sure.
Yeah, and when you mentioned that they may not feel it directly at first.
Mm-hmm.
So you used the word precedent before. So precedent can work as far as like things that you can build off someone else's solutions.
Mm-hmm.
But in the legal field,
Mm-hmm.
precedent can be the way another judge ruled on a case.
Mm-hmm.
They will if your case comes along and is similar to that,
Mm-hmm.
they will say, oh, well, that judge said that was okay. So now I have to say that's okay. That
Mm-hmm.
is a precedent, a legal precedent.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to be very knowledgeable, present, and aware of what's happening in our court system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because if you let something happen,
Mm-hmm.
then you have let something happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to say that, but if you let someone get tased and beaten in the street, whether they're related to you or you know who they are or not,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just oh well, they probably should have just. Oh well, they probably should have just. And then a year later, your loved one is beaten, tased in the street. I'm
Hmm.
like, wait, he was just riding a bike to work.
Hmm.
He was just he was just walking down the street. He was just trying to get here or there. You go before a judge, the judge is going to say, "Oh, remember when so and so v so and so happened that year? Well, that judge said it was okay." So yeah, I hate how our court system is set up. I'm glad we're I'm glad people like you, Jasmine, are seeking the legal field and looking to be change agents within the system because it is very flawed. And it's flawed by design. And I shouldn't say flawed, it's operating probably like it's supposed to operate. But it's where we have to be clear in getting good people into roles, particularly in the legal field,
Hmm.
care about people and are not just solely moved by prominence, exposure, influence, celebrityism. I don't know if that's a word, like
Yeah.
being famous, but they actually care about people because, yeah, it's rough out here. The court system is really rough out here, and I didn't share. I shared about the right response as a prevention tool, but we also are raising our children with interest in the legal system and politics through the vein of integrity, because all lawyers are not good people.
No.
There are some lawyers who take on cases of impacted people who are not good people.
Correct.
And we need more lawyers and people in the legal field and who have legal acumen and understanding to represent families in a way that is rooted in integrity, rooted in empathy, and they're using their skill set to do what's right and put up the
Correct.
best case before these judges. And we need you to become judges too. That's a whole nother getting you all on the bench is a whole nother thing.
It's
Like
a
moving
whole
from
other thing.
yeah, we need you to be in those black robes too.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure. It's funny you mentioned earlier, I forgot to mention it when you said it initially, but one of my professors, love that professor, is Professor Higginbotham, very, very prominent civil rights, expert and very knowledgeable resource. But he talked about, he gave the analogy, and you probably heard of the analogy before, but he gave the analogy in class of basically two men on a river and they're out fishing on the river and they see babies going down the river, and one of the fishermen, he jumps in, he's grabbing the baby. Every baby he sees, he jumps in, he's grabbing them. He jumps in, he's grabbing both of them. Then eventually one of the two gets out the water and starts walking, and the other one's looking like, where are you going? Like, why are you leaving me here to catch all these babies by myself? Like, clearly we need to save these children. And he's like, I'm going to go upriver and find out who's throwing these babies in the river. And like, how are these babies even getting here in the first place? And, that analogy is popular in talking about, like you said, going upstream and really like hitting on the issues and the jumping in the river and doing all the things. That's exhausting. As you mentioned, sometimes this fight can feel. So it's admirable that you took a passion of yours and then created something that focused in on getting at the root of the issue. I feel like even for myself, which is largely how we even got connected in the first place, I was expressing to a therapist, like my therapist, that I feel oftentimes in these spaces that I'm in now, I feel very like these are not the rooms that I need to be. Like, I do not feel seen. These conversations do not like interest me. Even the lens of the conversation, like how we're going about the conversation, is so off, axis for where I'm centered at. I'm centered at, like you said, what's the real issue here. And with my background in sociology, like I'm very well versed in the fact that like the government knows exactly what's happening. Like you said, these court systems know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. The politics of everything, even with judges, like you said, the judges like, well, I could be radical and revolutionary and choose to push the lens, as we can see our the current president is doing with his role. I could be radical and push the envelope, but then I might not get reelected. So I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And, just
yeah.
all these little things really are layered on top of each other to create a system that, like you said, is kind of working exactly how it was designed to work by excluding certain people and protecting others. As they say, justice is blind. So it's a interesting it's a very interesting position to be in as a law student right now. And like you say, the reality is, like, I used to hear all the time lawyers have a bad rep, and I was like, well, I really don't want to be, even telling people I'm in law school. It can get very different responses depending on people's experiences and whether or not they know me. But because if you don't know me, then you don't know my character. But the reality is, I hope and I know I will be one of those agents of change, because it's rough out here, to say the least. It is rough out here. And on that note, with you mentioned mental wellness, especially in the Black community, and how that's a big focus for the organization. And I guess I wanted to ask you, I know you mentioned, well, I don't think we mentioned yet, the sister check-ins that the organization does, and just other initiatives that are led by this organization that really promote the importance of discussing these things and providing community resources to have safe spaces to talk about this stuff and get the help needed. So how does your organization address those things as well?
Yeah, our sister check-ins are just what the title says. It's a check-in. Like, it's very, you can say it basic. It's very simplistic, right? It's like, oh, I'm just going to check in with another sister. Like, how is she doing? And we started them. I think the first one may have been March of 2020. I think I had my therapist on. She was the very first one. My therapist in Vegas, and then I brought in my life coach, and I brought in some impacted families. We brought in like yoga instructor, breathwork instructor. We've done writing, facilitated writing, guided writing. And all of it, the purpose of the space is to give you a chance to just be. You don't have to show up as super woman, super person, super mom. You don't have to be small and shrink because you're scared you might say something to upset someone. It's really just to talk about how you are, what you need, how we can support you. And then we'll have us sometimes a guest come on, like my brother's a police officer. He came on and talked about police, being a Black person in policing. He and I sit on polar different spectrums on most things. Like, we see things very different.
Yeah.
But I'm a brother. I'm gonna always love him, and I've told him, like, look, I need us to be on the same. We're not to be on the courtroom together. So you got to do your things right.
Yeah.
You got to be on the up and up, because if you are wrong, you are wrong, and I will absolutely tell you.
Yeah.
But I am on to just talk about being a Black man in policing. And then we bring like just different people on with different expertises. I have one of my friends helps with like special education and I like the different IEDs that for children down in Texas. We've had a little bit of everybody come speak to us to just help us educate us, but also give us a space to just really just breathe and just be ourselves, our full, large selves, fully Black, fully melanated selves.
Yeah.
While,
Unapologetically.
yeah, while also learning, just learning information and in increasing our knowledge in certain areas, particularly areas of safety, how to keep us and our children and our loved ones safe while protecting our minds. Because it's one thing to say, okay, we want to end police violence by the year 2038. And it's another thing to say, I actually want to experience that end. I want to live to reap the benefits of the work that I have done. And
Yeah.
how do I do that? Well, me personally, I have to keep my blood pressure in check.
Okay.
I have to walk. I have to do some physical movements multiple times a week,
Mm-hmm.
or my blood pressure skyrockets.
Mm-hmm.
Skyrockets. I have to make sure that I'm not overly consumed with rage and anger,
Yeah.
because it will settle in my body and make me unhealthy. I can't do that. I can't sustain. I want to, what's that saying? I want to sit under the tree that I planted years ago. I want to enjoy the shade of the tree that I planted. Like, I want it for the future generations too, but I want that for me. I
Yeah.
want to see what this country looks like when Black people are well and well resourced. I
Yeah.
would love to experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we have to protect our minds. That's what the sister check-ins are for. We are moving now from they were strictly virtual for 3 years, And then we moved them into in person. And really, right now, with our political climate, we have got to move ourselves, pull ourselves away from our screens as much as we can,
Mm.
and get back into communities with one another.
Yeah.
That's sitting at kitchen tables together. That's sitting in church basements together. That's going for a walk together. That's being together in person, because we tend to hide behind our screens like, oh my God, I 10,000 followers and I got all these friends. Those followers are not your friends.
No.
You need friends, connection in person.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to get back to what our forefathers, our ancestors were doing
100%.
in person. We have to. We feed off each other. Our best solutions are found in one another. No one has the answer to anything.
No.
Have the answer to anything.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of the answers inside of each one of us. So it takes us gathering and getting together, like to kind of complete the picture of wellness and safety for us. Like, oh, you knew this? Well, I know this portion of it. Well, who do you know? Oh, you know that? Like, you just pull your resources together, and we are well. We are safer. We are more well. We are more whole.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to get outside the screens.
Yes, especially two things. Post COVID, I think generally as a society, going beyond the bounds of race has just become so isolated. We've become so like, I don't even want to go to the grocery store. I'd rather sit in my car and let you drop them into my car and go back home. Like, I don't even, just the little things, the little things that were once so normal in our society have become elusively less normal. Um, or the norm is changing. Maybe that's a better way of wording
That's
it.
not
Yeah, and we have to learn, like you were saying, that ultimately going back to that precedent conversation, it works for a reason. You know what I mean? The meeting in person, the meeting of minds, the feeding off of each other's energy, like you mentioned, like all of that is essential to not only achieving those goals, but again, sustaining our wellness long term. Like, no, again, these are very large issues that are emotionally laborious. I mean, if we're just gonna call it a spade, you know, and it's necessary that we can provide that support within our community, because ultimately, like, that's the only place we're gonna get it. That's all we can really count on, is creating
yeah,
those things within our own communities.
yeah, yeah. We have got to reconnect. I know it was easy. It was easy. It was convenient. So let me just live stream this. Let me just tap in virtually. Our connection is going to keep us well.
100%.
I need to know that I can walk out my front door. Like, I'm talking like hyper local connection. Like, I can walk out my door, go two doors down. I know Amy's over there and she got three kids. Let me go talk to her and make sure she's okay. She can come and get some coffee from me or get an egg from me. Like, I know what's going on in her life. I know how I can support her. Like, we've got to, like, the days of not knowing our neighbors gonna have to go. It's gonna have to be done. Like, we're gonna have to know our neighbors, know who's in our community, make sure that everything that we know we're sharing with our church groups, our sorority, our whatever group, your walking group, your book club, whatever groups you're in, and actually go to these groups.
100%. 100%. And especially, I'm on the cusp of Gen Z, and I forgot the it's not is it millennials? I don't know. I just know I'm on the cusp of like,
Right at Gen Z, the start of Gen Z, because
yeah,
I'm a geriatric millennial. Like, I'm right at Gen X. I'm right at the beginning of the millennials. So
yeah,
I'm an old.
that's how I am on the Gen X side. Like, I know when I get older, they're gonna be like, "Oh, you grandma," but I, especially my parents are older as well. I'm the youngest, so I have older siblings,
Okay,
older
okay.
parents. Yeah, so I was raised by like the baby boomer cusp. So yeah, the I got real traditional, old school upbringing. All that to say, which I know is very different than a lot of my peers. Not saying all of them, but a lot of my peers, their parents are much younger, so they grew up with a phone, and they grew up with no,
It's
no,
different.
things were very. I was not raised that way. It was a little different than my siblings, but it wasn't like how different it is now. So seeing how and drenched the phone culture, the screen culture, we'll call it, is in the younger community. Like that's a big passion of mine, galvanizing younger people and just getting them to realize like there was a life before the phone. Like I understand both sides because I was in middle school and like social media, app, you could get it on your phone and it was the apps and now it's really accessible. Versus before, generation before, it was like you gotta log on to the desktop and it just wasn't as accessible. Whereas now things are just so accessible. So I understand it, but I also understand, like, I remember what it was like to go, like you said, just walk up to my neighbor and be like, hey, you want to go play? I know the beauty of that and the social skills that can be gained from that long term, just knowing how to talk to people, literally just things that are things that are things that I consider to be very simple but are not as simple anymore because of the norms, again going back to the changing norms of our society. And then you add in the fear mongering that the media creates and these screens create, and now everybody's dealing with so much and not sharing. Nobody even fully understands what's going on, or maybe your timeline knows what you're experiencing, but not even the people in your own community, or issues like that. So with the, again, going back to the norms changing, and then especially the political climate, from your perspective, like, what are some of the challenges that you faced in beginning this organization and doing the advocacy work and moving forward? How do you plan on using the knowledge that you gain from overcoming those challenges to like then do the same thing now, if that makes sense?
Yeah, a lot of the challenge that I see is the fact that the court system, the legal system, I can't say justice because it's not justice. The legal system, they have a script. They follow kind of the same script every
Very
single time.
formulaic.
And yeah, it's sad because you have to watch a couple. You have to kind of follow a few different cases to see. Oh my gosh, this is the same as this. These are all the these. It's like the same like playbook. And
Mm-hmm.
I think when it comes to a challenge of helping regular individuals, people who haven't said, "Hey, I'm gonna transform these systems, these institutions." People like regular people living their lives, going to work every day, raising their children, helping them understand how what happens in the court systems directly impacts you and the way you can live your life. What happens politically directly impacts you in how you can live your life. What you and your loved ones can, will, and should do is governed by these institutions.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say, "Well, I hate politics," I'm like, you can hate it all you want.
It doesn't change
This
the
that's
impact.
your life. Then you have to decide: are you going to hate it and then do something? Like, and by do something, you don't have to build your own thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many organizations out there. Like we would love to have you in One in Four, but One in Four may not be your style.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there are so many others that you can tap into. But I encourage people to get connected with organizations that you trust. You can know 10 toes down, One in Four going to tell you the truth. We're going to tell you the truth, even when it breaks our hearts. We're going to tell you the truth. Our financials are public. We are a public charity. Ain't nothing hidden. You can come to our board meeting. There's nothing for me to hide
Mm-hmm.
because we're a public organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so make sure you get with the organization you trust. You connect with people that you trust locally. Though we're a national organization, we are now focusing on getting as hyper local as we can because we can see these trends popping up in different cities. But it's the same. It's the same script happening.
Exactly.
And so we have a toolkit. We supported an impacted families foundation called Andrew Joseph Foundation. We gave them a grant to help create and publish and release the Survivor Toolkit. And what that is it's a kind of do's and don'ts for when you were impacted by police violence, by a family that was impacted by police violence in their community. Why is this important? Because things that happen to them, if you're hurt or your loved one's hurt by police, they're probably going to follow the same script. And I will share that it's a lot of information in this book, and we're going to try to make it as easily digestible as possible. But it is very important that if someone you love is harmed by police, that you try to preserve as much evidence as possible on your own. Of course, get you a great lawyer, get you a trusted lawyer, but they're going to tell you the same thing. Like, did you go to the doctor? What did the doctor's discharge papers say? Do you have that in writing for the date, the time that you were examined physically? Did you go to the business and require them, hand them a preservation of evidence form saying, don't delete this video footage that you have. Don't just turn it over to officers and they just delete it for you. As much evidence as you can preserve, do that. We've also partnered with technology companies. Angel Tech is one, which you can live stream directly to your loved one's phone, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, your exact location. Eyewitness app is another one that gives you immediate legal representation when you're in the situation, whether you're with a law enforcement officer or your neighbor's popping off for some reason. You can have a lawyer live stream right there. So our goal is to, like I said, to prevent as much harm as possible. But if and when the harm happens, we're trying our best to get you a toolkit to walk you through what to say, what not to say, who to talk to, who not to talk to, what to do, because these families have already been through it. So we're trying our best to just kind of collect that information and make it digestible for you, easily understood, and protect you. Because the challenge that we're constantly facing is helping people understand that it may not be to you today, but whatever's happening in the courts can impact you, or in politics can impact you later. Can and will impact you later.
100%. And that is a common sentiment I hear, even especially going to law school and just, speaking to people in my community, my family members, my friends, whoever. Social media, like you said, just hearing how disenfranchised people are with the entire thing. Like, throw it all away. And it's like, I get that. Like, my heart understands that sentiment. But I also know that you have to be the change you want to see. Like, I equally know that. So,
It's nothing to say throw it all away. It's nothing to say throw it all away, but we're building this to replace it.
okay.
Like, we're trying to make sure that we are transforming systems.
Correct. Not just leaving a vacuum for
Like
more
I
to come in.
like I have to, if I'm going to tell people, well, don't call the police. I can't tell you don't call the police and then not tell you who to call, because that is not fair to you and it's unsafe for you, because you need someone to come out to you. So they say, okay, don't call the police, but also look at the right response and see who is close to you and how to tap into those response teams. So yeah, we can throw all this stuff away because some of these systems are
They
trash.
are.
They are harmful systems.
They are.
But we want to build something that is equitable, health centered, care centered for all people.
In private. In private, which is, you know, its own thing, layer of protection to a degree.
Yeah, yeah. And in private, what do you mean by in private? Which
Like, not government orchestrated. Put it
no, no one can do it.
that.
We can do it ourselves. We can do it ourselves, but we want the government to see the value in it and invest in it with their resources, because they do have a lot of resources.
Yes.
We don't want them to control that. We don't want.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many people doing amazing work right now that the government or state or municipalities can invest in. They choose not to because it's not controlled by them.
Mm-hmm.
They could.
And speaking of the
I encourage your group to your listeners to look at Freedom House. Just type in Freedom House and see what happened in Pittsburgh. How we even came up with paramedic systems in this country. It came from Black folks in Pittsburgh.
I did
Look up.
about that. I'd actually just found out about that this month, the first time. I did. It's and to go to your point of they just don't. Do you feel like, from your perspective, because my understanding is political power really can move the needle. That's really what can move a needle when it comes to like getting the government to care, care enough about an issue. Do you feel like there's a way to galvanize that political power within the community outside of just going to vote or things like that? Or, you get what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, voting is a tactic. I mean, we have to vote. That's no question about it. We have to exercise our right, and that is our right. Right? It's not.
Correct.
I have a right to vote.
Okay.
We need to vote. Voting is a tactic, but even more so than voting is making sure that your local council people know who you are. Show up at their meetings. Tell them exactly what you care about. And most, let me be honest, most of them are looking to you to know what to write.
Mm-hmm.
There's and the people that you usually see, your state legislator, at least at the state level, like their staffers are looking to you to know what to write. So write it for them.
Mm-hmm.
As a nonprofit, I can't tell you who to go to,
Mm-hmm.
but I can tell you legislators love to meet you. And even if you have someone that you or have opposing views with, be the squeaky wheel. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. The
Yeah.
person they see at these meetings, the people who come and say, well, why haven't you said the dash cam footage should be free and available to me within 24 to 48 hours? Well, I don't know why we haven't said that. Well, let's get it on paper then. Pat, feed them the information.
100%, especially because what I've learned moving around in my adult years is that there are certain groups and communities who are doing it, you know, and that are exercising that, privilege, I'll say, to go before their legislators and advocate for what they want to see in their communities and advocate for the people for the interests that they are passionate about and they care about. And so, and then, like you said, the squeaky wheel gets the oil because people tend to not want to have to keep hearing the same thing over and over and over again. Um,
Yeah, there's actually a Bible verse about that too, about this woman who goes before a judge, and he didn't want to give her what she wanted, but she was so persistent, and the judge was like, "Okay, whatever." Like
yeah,
persistence pays off.
it does. It does.
Legislators, council people at the local level, and right now particularly, I say go as local as you can with your needs. Go local, go local, go local, because the federal is doing their own thing right now. But go local. Let them know who you are. Like, hey, I'm Tansy. I care about ending police violence and promoting public safety for marginalized Black and marginalized groups. How are you going to help me do that? Do you care about that too?
Hmm.
And if they come to you and they're like, well, I just kind of feel like it's not a problem, like, oh, well, you clearly aren't the person I need to be talking to because I ain't got time to educate you on harmful systems. Let me find somebody who does care. And then hopefully, as you hear more about what we're doing, you'll be like, okay, well, she had a point.
Hmm.
I can get with her on this. And you don't have to agree with people on every single thing to
Correct.
get them in your corner for your thing.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to advocate for yourself.
Correct. Correct.
Use your voice.
Correct. And going back to that same professor that I was mentioning earlier, Professor Higginbotham, our orientation, I'll never forget. It was really inspirational, even because I had been doing this podcast for a while, but it's been. I'm in my young 20s. That's all I can say. When I started this, it was during a pandemic. Like I had big ideas, but the world felt really crazy, and my life was trying to get on course. But all that to say, for orientation for my law school, he said, in short, when you have the microphone, just make sure that you're using it with purpose and intention. Like, it's one thing for you to get the microphone, but it's another thing for you to get the microphone and spread a message that is worth hearing. And he just basically admonished us to use it wisely because that's the field we're going now. We're going to an exclusive niche practice career field, whatever you want to call it, where we will have some influence, and how we choose to wield that influence, it's a personal choice to kind of just sit back and let things happen, or sit back and just be the paper pusher, for lack of a better way of putting it, and just going through the motion and not really commanding the influence that you possess for things that are worthy of being spoken about. Because there's so many things, like you mentioned, there's so many issues out there that one could get behind and really stand 10 toes behind it and go to bat for, but you got to find that internal piece that connects you to that. So yeah, I'm so glad we got to do this. I knew I didn't even tell you the to end off, the reason I even decided to go to law school, ironically, is because I had a very traumatic interaction with the police, with a loved one. And I just remember feeling like a deer in headlights. Like I didn't know jack squat. I didn't know anything. And I kind of just, I mean, by God's grace, nothing too detrimental happened to either one of us. But it was just the principle of the how it escalated so quickly and how they presented things as though it wasn't about to escalate. And then it escalated. And then it's like, oh, things just spiraled out of control very quickly. And I just felt so bound at their mercy to a degree. And I just remember I was like, oh no, I don't never want to I don't ever want to feel like that again. So that's kind of what led me down this path in the first place. So it's a full circle moment to be able to speak to you about this and help and participate in this organization and to get involved. I mean, it's an honor to even get in, and it's crazy because you said you started this in 2018. If I'm not mistaken, I think that situation happened around like 2018, summer 2018, maybe something around that time. So it's ironic that all that happened. How again going back to the baby steps, and you just never really know how everything can come together. So again,
Your yes will impact somebody else. So you being, feeling like you were at their mercy, you and thousands of other people
yeah,
every year,
yeah,
every single year.
yeah.
We just got to do a better job of mapping out what to do. But even before that, like let's not interact with them. They say they're short staffed across the country. Well, okay, let's give you less work. If you're short staffed, let me give you less work. Let interact with you less, so now you can properly staff to solve crimes. They say. So yeah, I appreciate you for creating this space and having the conversation and just being a soon to be new lawyer
Yes.
who really cares about people because that makes a world of difference. And I want you to know that. And I'm proud of you for taking this on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, 100%. I'm excited for all the things that you're going to do and that we're going to do. And hopefully we can, once we get some things going, you can come back for another episode one day or something if we have something to promote or whatever, get people involved. But to close out, I wanted to make sure I asked you, is there any way that the listeners can get involved? Yeah, I know we talked about community involvement, but with 1 in 4 particularly, is there any way they can get involved or support?
Yes. So go every listener, if you heard anything today that resonated with you, that you're like, man, I want them to be able to achieve that goal by 2038. We know it's just 13 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a long time, but it is a very short time and it's a blip in history. If you want to help us make this historic impact and end this issue by 2038, go to the number one, the letter M, like mom, and the number four, 1m4.org, and click on the join us button. And there's a wait list there that's going to ask you for your name, your phone number. I think we have state on there too to make sure we know where people sit. Um, and then we will reach out to you on next steps. And next steps, honestly, full transparency, is for you to connect our resources to the people who connected to you. So we're not asking you to save the world, to save this country anymore. We're asking you to save your community and yourself. And if enough of us do that, we will have saved the country, but we're only focusing on who's connected to us right now. So 1m4.org, click join us, and we got you from there. And of course, you can always donate to the organization too. There's a donate button there too. But even more important than your donation is your power, which is your voice. We would love for you to speak up for the organization and speak up for people's rights with your voice in your. I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you anymore?
I was typing and I didn't want to. My bad. I was all like, yep, yep. No, but thank you again so much for being here. This was
Absolutely.
just what I needed. This put a smile on my face. I'm not gonna lie. I was having one of the mornings where I was just like, hold on, girl, hold on. It's okay. It's okay. We gonna get there. So no, this was just what I needed to rejuvenate me to get through the rest of my. So thank you again for being here. I'll make sure to include all of her socials, the organization socials. Try to make sure that people can access you as easily as possible. But Until next time, you guys, thank you so much for sharing this space with us, of course. And as I always say, stay safe, stay well, and stay you. And I will see you next time.